how do we lead a math talk in the middle school, even into high school level? We don't want to waste any productive math class time, and this video talks about how you can do it. So let's go. John here from Make Math Moments, and if you have not yet subscribed to our channel over here on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and hit the notification button so that you can get all of our videos coming to you right when they need to. In this video, we're talking about like how to lead a math talk in our middle school and into high school levels. And one of the big concerns when we have new routines to come into our classrooms, especially at these levels, is like, how do I build them into my program? I only have so much time in my classroom. And in this video, we actually, this is a live recording, or I guess you're going to see a recording, but we had a live session with the members of the Make Math Moments Academy. We have monthly sessions with our members to kind of guide them through how to lead tasks in their classrooms or answer any questions and show them teacher moves on lessons. And so in this particular one, we went through a math talk and talked about what are the moves, what are the teacher moves necessary to build sense making in our students. And specifically, you're going to see us do this with a task that involved division, but that led into solving equations, and we connect these ideas together. But the big idea here is the teacher moves necessary, that you can do this with any task or with any topic, not just specifically solving equations. So we want to give that to you. I think there's some really great value here in how we can do this with our students, but also the more important part is how do we do this productively so that students learn math at a deeper and stronger level and we don't waste time. So here we go. Let's get into it.
What we're going to do is we're going to start one that I did recently with our grade 9 D-stream, our teachers who are getting ready for this grade 9 D-streaming, as I had mentioned at the beginning of this session. And we set a context. And tonight I'm going to set you a context. You're going to notice here up on my screen, John, just to confirm you can see my screen. Yep. Awesome. So you'll notice here that we are always very visual. We try to keep things visual. We do it not only for students for engagement purposes, but we also do it sometimes for like ELL learners or ESL learners, students who struggle with reading, students who may just struggle with the English language. Let's say it really allows access and equity. However, sometimes we start context just verbally, like using storytelling. So kind of modeling that here, because I want educators to see that you can have a lot of effective practices without it being super flashy or necessarily media rich. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to tell you about my experience going to the apple orchard. Now, because of the time of the year with my students, I would say, this was last fall when apples come into season here. And I went to the apple orchard and I was heading out into the orchard to get the apples. And at the gate, they gave me 2 baskets. Okay. They're kind of like the long kind. I don't know if you've ever seen that where the apples look almost like they fit nicely, like one by one. Have you ever seen that, John, where it's kind of like they're kind of like in a nice little row? That's the kind of baskets. Oh. They have little handles on them. Oh. And yeah. They're from when I was like a kid, and they had these. So they're not huge baskets. So they send you out, and they said there's only one rule though, and the rule is this: when you go out into the apple orchard, you pick your apples. Each of the baskets, you have to fill them up completely. And you'll notice that when you fill it up completely, the baskets will have the same number of apples in them. They're designed this way. It's fantastic. Right. So I head out in the orchard, I come back, I dump out the baskets on the table, and I find that in total, what I have is 12 apples. Okay, I've got 12 apples. Okay. And remembering that I had my 2 baskets, and those 2 baskets had an equal quantity of apples. So the question I have for you, and I want you educators here, and you're going to have to participate with us here. At least a few of you are. My classes, I'm going to make sure that everybody's participating. But what I want you to do is I want you to wear two hats here. I want you to wear a hat of a student who you feel would be like super quick. And you're like, I'm worried this student's going to be bored really quick with a question like this one, because this is a very low floor question. I'm sure you're feeling that way right now. So I want you to think of like, what might that student do? I also want you to think about what might a student who, you know, maybe this is like right at their entry level, right? Like they're sort of like maybe, you know, don't have the best relationship with math. And the question I have for you to think about is, how many apples were there in each basket? So in an individual basket, that's the question. What I want for now, though, is when you have an answer, you're going to share the answer, but that is it at this point. And I want to hear the answers, and we want to see if there's any confirmation from the group. Okay. So if you've had a little bit of think time, I've given you a lot because I've sort of set the stage here on, you know, a few pedagogical moves for the students or for us as educators when we work with our students. And the question I have for you is, again, how many apples per basket? And if you are willing to share for me, give me a little hands up, thumbs up emoji of some type. You'll notice in a math class, I'm going to encourage doing like the typical number talk symbol, so that students aren't, you know, that fast thinking student, that student that's like the hair has the hand up and sort of shuts down all the thinking of the other students because they're like, Kyle's just going to do it. He's always quicker than me. I want to make sure we give time. I don't even ask for the answer yet until enough think time has happened. Here, I'm confident that you've had more than enough think time. So go ahead, and who wants to give me the answer here? How many apples do you think there were in each basket? How many apples per basket? Do we have any hands there, John? You're gonna have to help me here. I can't see the thing.
I'm seeing 2 on video, but I'm not seeing any reactions or raise hands in. Oh, I am seeing 1 raise hand in.
All right, Bailey, do you mind helping us out there? Like one. How many? And now keep in mind here, we're acting a little like you're all teachers, and I know that this is very accessible to all of us right now. So we're trying to anticipate student thinking here. So what do you have there? Was it Bailey we were looking at?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
6 in each basket.
6 in each basket. So you're gonna note here, I'm gonna just throw a 6 over here, 6 just over here, because what I'm doing is I'm gonna throw that out there. I notice I didn't say like, Bailey, you're right. Yes, great job, Bailey. Let's move on. Now I'm gonna look for confirmation from the group. Does anyone else have a different answer than Bailey? Anyone have a different answer? Not seeing anyone. I might pretend like, oh, Danny said 5. Okay, 5.
Throw them under the bus.
Okay, now what I'd like you to do with an emoji of your choice, if you agree with 6, can you give me some sort of signal, an emoji, a hand up, something, feeling, okay, so I've seen a few more. Oh, another one. Okay, how about now throw those hands down. I'm wondering, do you agree with Danny? Anyone else out there agree with Danny that it's 5? Anyone out there? Okay, no other people. Okay, so now I want to open the floor to you, and I want to ask you to help convince me whether, if you think it's 5 or you think it's 6, how would you convince me that it's your answer of 5 or 6? So I'm going to need a brave soul. You don't have to tell me which student you're pretending to be right now. You could just share it, and we have to try to interpret where this thinking is coming from and what that might look like or sound like. Got to be brave, though. Got to be brave. What do you think?
Yeah, well, since there's 2 baskets and we have 12 apples, so I'm going to take 2 apples out of that, and that leaves 10. And then if I put those 10 into 2 piles, I'll get 5.
Whoa. Okay. Can I do? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get. You mentioned 12. I'm just going to list out 12 for a second, if that's okay. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 10, 11, 12. And the reason I'm doing this, Danny, is because I'm just trying to make sure I understand what you're saying. Now, teacher move, I'm going to go over here and say teacher move. What I'm doing is I'm making an excuse for why I want to represent it this way, even though Danny may not have done it exactly this way. Does that make sense? So I've got like an intent in mind here, but I'm going to take Danny's thinking and I'm going to try to like massage it in some way so that we can try to get his representation to be modeled here. And he may or may not like it, and he might make me draw it again, and that's okay too. But I'm going to get both representations here. So Danny, you said you went down to 10. So I have 12 here. You went down to 10. And what did you do at that point? You said you...
So then I took those 10 and I guess I paired them up so that they were I lined them up side by side.
Oh, super cool. So kind of like, would it be fair to say, like, you mean like you were like, okay, you had said side by side, like 5 and then 5 underneath. Do you mean like that?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's 10 apples. That's kind of cool. And then what did you do?
Well, because there were 2 baskets, so
Right. Where are the other 2?
I left 2 in the basket.
Okay. So are these just listed out on the table?
Yeah, you said you dumped them out, but I put 2 back in the baskets because they looked lonely.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to go like this. Is it fair for me to say, you said you put 2 in the basket. I'm going to go like that. Here's maybe 1 basket. And I'm going to keep that open here. Here's the other basket, I guess, right? 1 in each, you had mentioned. And then I guess, what's going on with these other 10? Like, how are we going to prove? Like, because I guess I'm not convinced yet that there are 6 in each basket yet. But maybe you have a way to convince me.
No, I think that I was making 5 is my answer. I was justifying.
Oh, you're making 5.
Answer.
Got it. Okay, so I guess I'm wondering, I've got 1 in each basket, right? And this is actually really good because this happens. Like, yeah. I'm not kidding you. So, but here's the thing though. Notice how what I'm doing is I'm actually trying to seek clarity from Danny, because Danny's saying 5. So I see 5 here and I see 5 here, but I only see 1 in each basket. So I'm wondering, Danny, why is your answer not 1?
I can't come up with it. I can't keep arguing this side. Yeah, I see what you mean. I think the answer should be 6.
I like it. I appreciate your effort to kind of take it down that road. But ultimately, at the end of the day, what we're hoping to do, what we could do, if I've been here, I've been in this scenario, not exactly this one, not as creative as Danny's, but I've been in a scenario where it's like we can't really make sense of it, and the students sort of, it's almost like they kind of do one of these, and it's like they've now realized that maybe their thinking isn't quite there yet. So then we say, you know what, Danny, can we come back to this? Is that okay? Like maybe after, can we ask you and see if like you have maybe more clarity around your thinking, or if maybe you want to even like adjust your thinking, right? So these are really important moves that I have to have, because not only will it make you sweat, like you're going to sweat in those scenarios, you're thinking on your toes, but you have to find a way where you're not going, like what I used to do is I would just try to like move on from that sort of scenario. Like I would try to be like, oh, I want to get out of that, you know, and but now that students like, well, I'm not sharing again because I feel like my voice isn't valued. So finding a way to kind of go like, yeah, Danny, I really like your thinking, like really trying to like relate and say like, I think I see what you're saying, but I'm not quite convinced yet. I wonder if we can come back to it. Maybe we can ask another person in the room. They might have something similar, or maybe they have something completely different, and that's totally fine. So we'll come back to this, Danny. We're going to see if your thinking evolves from where it is here to maybe something that you know, is more where you're more convinced, or we're all more convinced of that thinking. So we'll come back to that. How about anyone else in the room? Would anyone else like here, I threw down 1 just because I'm seeing 1 in these baskets. Maybe you agree with 1, maybe 5, maybe 6. There was a lot of people who were thinking 6. So I'm wondering, does anyone want to like maybe go down that path and try to, you know, see if we can compare and contrast here? Is there anyone brave out there who wants to share their thinking around 6 being the number of apples per basket?
I could share my way.
Yeah, Bailey, what are you thinking?
So I just like drew 2 circles, one for each basket. And then I started putting like tally marks, almost like dealing cards, like one here, one there, one here, one there, until I got to 12.
Super cool. So I'm going to kind of like, you had mentioned like 2 big circles. So maybe that's like 1 basket. That's like another basket. You would use tally marks. Is it okay if I use circles just because that makes me feel like apples, but is that okay? Is that?
Yeah, that's cool.
Awesome. So notice how I asked for permission. So I'm like, Bailey, this is your representation. Is it okay if I represent it that way? And she's like, yeah, sure, whatever. Some kids are like, no, do tally marks. All right, I will. No worries. So here we go. And it sounded like you said kind of like dealing. It's like if we looked at Danny's apples here, it was almost like you took one and threw it in here, and then took like one and threw it in there. And you just did that over and over again. Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah.
So I'm at 8 total, 9, 10, 11, 12. Whoa, that's interesting. So I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 apples total. So like all of these apples have gone into these 2 baskets. That to me is interesting. How many people out there are feeling good about 6 apples per basket over here? Anyone feeling good about that? Super cool. Is there anyone else out there who has a different way, or are you feeling pretty convinced over here? Any other thoughts there? I see John. What are you thinking, John?
You were asking a different strategy on getting 6.
Yeah, different strategy. Maybe it's a model. Like, what was your thinking behind
here's
that?
Here's what I was thinking. As I wanted to put them in 2 equal groups, and so I wanted to find the middle line of your line there. So it's like I did something similar. I put the 12
Over
in a
here?
row. Yeah, just like that, 12 in a
Cool.
row. And then instead of doing what Bailey did in putting them in the groups, I counted in like this until I reached the middle line, and then I knew that would be halfway between the 2, and then that divides them into 2 groups.
Super cool. So you were looking at it. So like what I heard you say, you didn't like symbolically say it, but you said you had like 12 apples and you wanted to divide them into 2 groups. And you're telling me that was 6 apples per group, and you kind of counted in and you found that middle. Notice how like even spatially you can kind of do that, right? You can kind of like do one of these and go like, that's like, think of some students who have that, students who have that ability to kind of do that chop. Is it okay, John, if I, to try to relate it back to some of what Danny was saying and Bailey was saying over here, is it okay if I even like take your chop, and can I maybe even like show it like it's in a basket?
Yeah.
A little bit, like, could that be kind of cool? And I'm wondering, I'm just going to add, I'm curious here. I just want to make sure we get this down. If I was to put my number of apples, we had 12, I think, right? We have 12 apples. Here we have 0 apples if I start counting all the way along. And I think we'd all agree we have 6 there. Like that feels really good. Like this feels very similar to what we have here. I'm coming back to Danny now. Danny, don't feel like you have to respond, but you could. I would come back to Danny though, and I'd say like, Danny, I'm coming back to here. How are you feeling now? I'm wondering if your thinking kind of sounded like this thinking a little bit, but I'm wondering, did you maybe not put all the apples into the baskets, or what are you thinking now, right? So we've come back and honor Danny's thinking, right? To make sure that it's not like, ooh, don't pick Danny next time because, Danny wasn't on track. We want to make sure everyone's seeing things. Something else I want to also highlight here is with this representation, and in this one here, we have 2 counts going on. And this kind of speaks to some of the learning we were discussing a little earlier tonight about proportional relationships. And it's this idea that I'm actually counting 2 quantities. I'm counting baskets and I'm counting apples. I'm counting apples and I'm counting baskets. There's actually a relationship going on here. Here I have 0 baskets. How many baskets would I have at this point, do you think? I've got 1 basket. Fantastic. How about over here? 2 baskets. Awesome. And here's the best part. A lot of people are like, okay, when are we going to get to the point? I want everyone in the class to be like, like when you have a student who's in your classroom, has traditionally not loved math or not had a good relationship with math, and they're sitting there rolling their eyes because they're like, I get this. That's what you want, right? I don't want them going like, I don't get this again. You know, I want everybody to be here because there's going to be a big takeaway here. A few takeaways, actually. One thing I want to mention is that if I think about this, John mentioned 12 divided by 2. You even said like into 2 groups, which I really like that language. We're going to fill in some blanks here in just a minute. But also, like, imagine if I was like, there's 2 baskets and I wanted to know how many, basically, I wanted to know how many apples per basket. Oh, darn. Didn't have enough room. And you folks told me there were 6 per basket. And most students would say right away, it's like, well, yeah, 2 baskets times 6 in each basket is equal to 12 apples. And the part that I really want students to take away, and this is for the educators, is I could actually represent this as an equation. I could say, you know, what I didn't know here was A. And I can actually write this as 2A is equal to 12. And I might not do it now, but maybe in the next day or so, we might talk about how opposite operations emerges from this one-step equation, but probably not yet, because the next piece that I would want students to do is, and I'll try to be quick on this because I know we are in 1 minute out of time. So if you have to step out, no sweat. We will not be mad at you if you do. But here's the part that I want to tell you, because I went back to the apple orchard the very next week and I wanted more apples. And this time though, they had a different employee working there. And I was like, well, where's the baskets that I used last week? The ones that have 6 apples per basket. And they were like, we're out of those baskets. They're like, we got these other baskets and you need to take them and go into the field. Same rules apply. Same rules apply. Got to fill it with the same number of apples. You got to come back. You're going to dump it out and you're going to tell us how many apples you have. And me being a creature of habit, I came back to the table. I had 12 apples. And the rule they had for me was, you know, instead, we're not going to give you 2 baskets. What we're going to tell you is that you have to go out into the field. You have to go and pick and put exactly 2 apples per basket. In each basket. And the question I have for you is, how many baskets are there? Now, from a teacher moves perspective, I have a funny feeling we're not going to waste time on this, but we would do the same thing. We'd ask students for the response. I'm going to bet most students are going to come up with 6, just like here. You're going to say it's 6. I'm going to say, great. But then I'm going to challenge you. I don't care whether you're Danny, who is maybe struggling at first here, or whether you're Bailey, who is like, it's 6 and let's move on. I'm getting bored. Because what I want to challenge everybody to do right now is, how are you going to convince me in this scenario that the answer is 6? And in this particular case, it's 6 baskets. What's that going to look like? And you're more than welcome to look at our models that we did previously. Which ones look the same and which ones look different? And then we'll talk about our big takeaways from this math talk, because this will be the end of it here. So feel free, if anyone want to go ahead and share any representation that you'd like to help us with here. And I'm curious to hear how you went about it to get to the solution. And you can be brave. You can just flip on the mic and talk. What do you think?
Oh, are we continuing this? I just wanted to say, I love that you're including units on the equations that you're writing at the top, thinking of that from a algebra 1 perspective and so forth, where students start doing the operations in weird orders because they don't think about units. And so that unit analysis is such an important thing. You know, it's hard for me to think about the idea of 12 divided by 2 at as a high school teacher, and students that struggle with that. I don't have many students that would struggle with that, but the concepts of making sure we're talking about with units and all of that, and tying in the elementary concept with the high school concept is so cool to see.
I love it. I love it. And I appreciate that. And usually too, this is my laziness here, because I really like to advocate, because here's how oftentimes we approach equations. We introduce this, we give them something easy, we throw it on the board, but it's naked. This is a naked problem. Notice how we started with context, right? So the context was verbal. We gave it to you. We kept units. We made sure that there was like everybody had a solid footing, like they could visualize this process, maybe manipulatives, depending on where you are. But my wonder here, and this is where I think there's going to be a big epiphany that is had. I wouldn't say this to my class. I want it to sort of just happen. But for us as educators, when you're looking at this, like, is this scenario just going to look like this? Is some of it going to look the same? Is all of it going to look the same? Is all of it going to look different? What are you thinking? Any thoughts? Karen, I see yellow around your bubble. Any thoughts? All right, let's pretend we're Danny, or actually Bailey, who is right here.
Yeah.
Bailey, who did this strategy. Will this strategy work the same way, even though the answer is still 6?
I don't think so, Kyle.
Why not? Like, what are you gonna do, John, if you're this student who's using kind of this approach? What are they gonna have to do instead?
I probably would have more circles, right? So it's like I could have circles, but it's just like this whole like 6 per circle isn't gonna play out. I would say, well, look at, I would take 2 apples. That's a basket, set them to the side. So now I have a circle with 2 apples. And then I have another, and I would just count by 2s, right? So it's like every 2 makes a basket until we can get to the end. And so, yeah, I might have circles, but I'm not going to have 6 in a circle to show the answer 6. So the answer is a different it's a different portion of what that diagram means.
And John, you said something different too, because when Bailey said it, she sort of said, if I recall, she said this idea of like dealing. And when I think about dealing, I think about like fair sharing. You're like little kids sharing a chocolate bar. Like, we're going to fair share this. Like, you're going to get one, you're going to get one, you're going to get one. That's what happened here. This was like a fair share.
Yeah.
That's a strategy.
Yeah. And that's not what we did down there.
Down here, what did you say, John? You said something specific here.
I said, take 2 and then put them in a basket and then keep doing that until they're all gone.
It's like 2 and then another 2 and then add another 2.
So that's like take 2 out, take 2 out. How many times can I take 2 out?
Oh, you said that's really interesting too. It's like, so it's almost like thinking backwards. Like, I have 12, take away 2, take away 2, take away 2. So you got repeated addition or repeated subtraction. So your repeated addition or subtraction. And meanwhile, a lot of people define division as repeated subtraction. Like, that's a common definition. But the reality is it's only happening here. It's not happening up there. Here, it's happening as fair sharing. And I would even argue too, if I draw these same 12 apples, I'm going to try my best here to line them up just so I'm sort of spatially close.
Now, if you're drawing that and then you're going to put a number line around that, like you did before, because I think it was, where'd it go? I think it was Mariana said like a double number line like you had above could be good, but she's like, it goes up to 6 baskets instead of 2 baskets. Yeah, like that.
So check that out. So I've still got 12 apples. Here's my 0. Here's my apples. Here's my baskets. I've got 0, but oh my gosh, I got a lot more baskets this time. And my apples, here's my jumps of 2, like John had mentioned, right? And the reason that this is so important is because even though the equation, like, look at this equation that could that we could create here. I could say like B is my unknown. Now it's 2B is equal to 12. And that's going to look identical as a naked problem, but with the context, it looks, and how you approach it is completely different. And the crazy reality is, so these are the two types of division that are emerging through equations. Whenever we solve any equation, right? And we kind of go back to this idea of middle school, and, you know, I solved equations where we just solved naked problems. But in reality, every time you solve an equation where there's a coefficient with your variable, you have to divide, and you have to divide with one of the two types. The first type is a fair share strategy, which they call partitive. That's partitive division. When that context is revealing a rate, here is the rate. The rate was unknown. That is how I know now that it's partitive. It's something I've developed over time. I wouldn't say memorize that. You just want to know there's two types, and that one of them you're revealing a rate, and the other one you're revealing the parts or the groups are unknown. And this one is called quotative. And the reason why this is such a big deal is because I want you to think about how this relates to so many concepts in middle school that students struggle with. Like, if I think about this, so I've got equations over here, right? Equations is key. I've got modeling, which is important, this double number line. But also, if I go this way, now I've got two different ratio tables. Like, look at this ratio table and look at that ratio table. They look super different. This one, I've got a ratio. I've got a 1:6 ratio. Here's 2:12. I've got 4:24. I've got 8:48. I can keep extending this ratio table to oblivion. I can graph it, right? I can do whatever I want. Over here, I've got another ratio table. This is a 1:2 ratio. And something that's really interesting is that somewhere in this middle school range, we tend to tell kids that whenever you see an equation like this, or in particular, y equals mx, we always use only one of the two types of division. But in reality, that's not the only possibility that could happen. We're usually saying m is the rate, and we usually are finding the rate, and then we always have the number of parts is always the thing we plug in. Mm-hmm. But that's only one of these two scenarios. So it's almost like we're like hiding the whole other scenario that's possible. And that also hides this idea that there's two types of division as well. So the reason I share that with you as educators is like, I'm trying to think about math talks and how I can utilize them to ensure that, first of all students can access, but that we can make more connections, and we can actually use this as a strategy to make connections across our curriculum so that students are working more comfortably with these different ideas. And in that proportional relationships course, we dive deep into these ideas of ratios. Like here, I've got two ratios given. I can reveal a rate by dividing across, or I can reveal a scale factor by going in tandem, dividing up and down each ratio table. So there's so much to unpack here. You couldn't unpack all of this with one group of students. You'd have to pick one idea and just focus on that. And then the next day you'd unpack another idea and another idea. But today, you're all educators. I know you all can handle this idea. It's just an idea of what you can do with a math talk to make sure all students are included, feel their voice heard, and then also are making connections across the different concepts in math. So hopefully, I know we went a little long tonight, but hopefully that serves the purpose that one of our members, our fellow math moment makers, had for us when they asked about math talks and what that could look like and sound like in action.
Okay, so that was our math talk lesson with our Make Math Moments That Matter Academy members. And you can also join the Academy and get into our monthly sessions like that. We have monthly live sessions with our members. and that's all included in the academy, so you can join us to do live sessions. Now, we used some tasks specifically to do these types of talks and lessons with our students, and you can find those over at makemathmoments.com/tasks. And what we have over on our tasks website is full tasks for you to do, and a lot of them have math talks built right in to those lessons. And so if right here I am on the tasks page, and you can see that our newest one at the time of this recording is missing batteries, which has to do with multiplying decimals. If you ever taught kids how to just move the decimal back and forth, this one is about how to build that sense making around why we actually do that. And why do we teach the kids that? And so having kids build sense around the reasoning there. So there are lots of tasks here to use with your students. We got sorting at the top. And remember, Academy members will get full access to the Teacher Guide tab, which shows all the teacher moves necessary. So you saw Kyle walk through the teacher moves on that math talk in the last one. Well, the teacher guide here has everything you're going to need to know on how to craft the task, how to craft the productive struggle, how to spark curiosity with your students, what are the moves that are necessary to do all of that. So notice this particular one is a multi-day unit, and many of our second days have math talks built right in. So you'll see this math talk tab, and we have the guide of what questions to ask when. So we've carefully created these to build the exact sense making we need to in our students. And in the guide on that day, we guide you through how to set up that math talk. What are the questions? What are the kids are going to say or anticipating them to say? So that's all in the task section on our website. So you can head on over to makemathmoments.com/tasks to get in on the action on math talks and also our multi-day units. All right. If you have not yet subscribed to this channel, please hit that button because we'll send you another video next week. Take care.